Hai, Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menonton Agenda AWANI. Bukan selalu saya dapat berpeluang bertemu dengan minda insan Malaysia yang berjaya di persada dunia, berada di luar dan kini kembali dan mahu sentiasa kembali dan menyumbangkan Malaysia. For that, I would like to speak in English because Professor Datuk Dr. Liew Chung Chin has always been overseas, burning the oil for us to look at the benchmark and flying the Malaysian flag in very, very fun frontier science and R&D, if I can put it that way. You know, Prof, welcome to Agenda AWANI. Yeah. This is the first time we're having you on Astro AWANI and on this show. And we share only the same background of Penang. It's one of our beloved places to always go back to. I studied in University of Science Malaysia, Penang. You, of course, is a proud name to be associated with Penang. Your whole family tree could be traced back to even the 1900s or the late 1800s and the field of medicine. I'll come to that. But on this show, we always try to bring what's latest globally and to the understanding of the masses here. And it's not always that have a chance to look at genetic sequencing, genomics, personalized medicine, DNAs, RNAs, and also maybe looking at the hope in the field of oncology. For example, all this sequencing of genome and DNAs and RNAs, for example, how is it helping us, the layman, for example, especially in Malaysia? How is it making a lot of families who have family members affected by cancer, one of the main killers in Malaysia right now? And if you look at it, but sometimes whenever we look at journals of medicine, we feel that Malaysia is so far behind. But in you, we've got a person, a Malaysian, who is flying the flag and who has done a lot and achieved a lot. And I would like to go to the part where what is the importance of genome sequencing? You know, after billions of US dollars, it was mapped a few years ago. And but the question always is in Malaysia, so what's in it for us? What are we doing about it? Are we having R&D around that area? Are we leveraging it back to help move our society forward? So I'm going to let you paint the picture. There's so many awards that you have won, so many write-ups and publications that you have done. But while we talk, I just want to weave that in, and then we go towards your history, and maybe the youngsters out there especially can really look forward and see the role model that you have set for Malaysia. So can you give us your expert views on where Malaysia is, where personalized medicine is, and where genomic sequencing is playing more and more in the field of medicine, playing a bigger role?
Well, thank you. This is an excellent question you asked me. Well, you know that it doesn't matter, all of a human being, the DNA sequence among, say, the black or white or yellow, all these races, the DNA, in fact, is 99.99, exactly the same. And they also transmitted or inherited from generation to generation. So we can say the DNA is so stable that everyone having more or less identical DNA sequences. Even from the human to monkey, it's about 98% are similar sequence. And to even rat, it's 95%. It's similar. So you see that from the evolution point of view of DNA, they're very stable and consistent. So doing all this very static DNA, perhaps will be very hard how to look into precision medicine applied to human being. Particularly in this latest development, we are in a very dynamic state and involve a lot in environment factors, all the food and everything to change that. So the most important part, in fact, we have to look into the RNA. Why I call it this is a very dynamic genome.
Okay.
And this is really the part which precision medicine should look at it very critically. That's what I have been concentrated on this part, on how you look at molecular biology to molecular medicine, how you apply
Yes.
to our own wellness. So the whole field of medicine, you look at it, it should be a very important that how early you can detect a disease.
Yes.
It's not telling me that your father, your mother, your grandfather, and so forth, you have inherited that. The most important part of the dynamic part of the DNA, how they dictated the messenger RNA is coming out. So this is very important, very different in a DNA sequencing and a very dynamic genome that you look at the RNA, particularly the messenger RNA.
Prof,
Yeah.
God bless my biology teacher. Luckily, I paid attention in a few classes, so I can get a bit of what you're saying. You know, messenger RNA. Go back to your biological books, you at home. And when we are recording this, Prof, this is the first day of the new calendar year for students in school. Those taking science and biology, do not, shy away from learning all these things, because this is a basic building block. But I have to go for the first break. Once I'm back, but what does that mean? What does that mean that if we have more knowledge of genomic sequencing and looking at oncology, for example, overlapping the two together, what can we solve? For example, anybody who have had a family member diagnosed with the big C or cancer know that it's a very fearful fate that we're looking at. And then they'll be telling, what stage is it at? First, second, third, fourth. But with what Professor Datuk Doctor has done, you can maybe look at the risk of someone having cancer way before that stage. And the biopsy doesn't need to be invasive, because you can just take your blood or any biofluids, for example, and if there's cancer, if blood goes towards the part where there is tumor or whatever it is, wouldn't that be a messaging exchange in between the cells, for example? It's going a bit deeper, but the main thing is technology is here. We're talking about fourth industrial revolution, and it's high time we talk about that and the field of medicine and hope for our society right after this short break. Hi, you're still watching a very special session of Agenda. I'm always proud to have, great Malaysians on this show, and Professor Dr. Liu Chongqing is here with me. A proud name to be associated with Penang. I like to be associated with Penang. You see Science of Malaysia. The last time I talked about genomic sequencing assays and, arrays of diagnostic was when the USM, the current Vice Chancellor, dared me to moderate a panel session at a very international diagnostic conference that USM is hosting. But now you reminded me of all that, because if I can take my blood, give it to a clinic that offers the services, thanks to your company, I know there are boutique clinics here offering that, and they can put my blood into, the usual stuff that doctors do or clinicians do, and spin it around and then put it into an arrays and assays of to look at the markers, for example. But from what we have discussed just now, sequencing, genome sequencing is giving more information for researchers and doctors to have a better reading of the diseases that we have. Applied into the world of oncology, you're looking not only at giving hope, but economically. I look at the latest report online, and they're talking about just liquid way of not doing biopsy, liquid biopsies, for example, they're looking at 20 to 40 billion US dollars straight away if people migrate to that kind of risk assessment. So for Malaysia, you've established your centers here from Canada, and where's the hope for us? Because always we have to look at the bigger nations and wait a few years, if not decades, for things to come. Even for drugs, it's the same thing. But now that we have expertise like you and you have blazed the trail for the country in this particular line, where is the hope for us now?
Well, this is a very interesting question you asked too. You see, think about it. I was started on the cardiovascular system, and it's very hard to get a biopsy from the heart.
Yes.
It's just unlikely you can do it. At the same time, if you have any problem in the brain, it's impossible you do a biopsy to do it in the brain. So all the organ, when people are talking about biopsy, it's just unlikely to do it. The best way to do it, 20 years ago, I was beginning to think the simplest way to do through the blood. That's why that time we call it a liquid biopsy.
Yes.
Because of that, the blood is really maintain the health and whatever caused the disease, actually through the blood. The blood not only provided all the nutrients, everything for the body, as well as they communicate all the organ with the body into a called a homeostasis of mechanism.
Okay.
It's over 100 years ago, the great physiologist Canon has been talking about the wisdom of the body. It has to go through circulation. That's when you think about the blood. It's really the place we can really get all the signal about the body in health and disease.
Yes.
And that's why 20 years ago, I'm beginning to take blood as the final best way we can detect any change in health and disease of the body. That is very critical. From that on, we know how many genes already of the body. So if you look at this, the gene changes in terms of copies or the mass. It will change the state of the body. Now, as I say, DNA is so stable.
Yes.
You can get it from the blood, but that is static. But the messenger is the one generated from the DNA.
Yes.
So it depends on how many copies or the mass of it will change the structure of the body in homeostasis state. This is why so critical become the liquid biopsy, right? Everyone are pursuing it. So we are taking this to look at it, put it in a very simple language.
Yes.
That is a computer. The hardware is very similar. The software become the power to how to get the computer into the world. This is exactly why I emphasize the dynamic genome is rely on the messenger. And from that, you can really detect as early as possible what the disease beginning, such as cardiovascular system.
Yes.
Is still the number one of the disease.
Killer, yeah.
Okay? Cancer is another way. It's a second important we have to look at. But in order to break through, to indicate we can handle this problem, we're taking cancer, like colon cancer.
Yes.
Is the one we really can treatable if you detect very early enough.
And it's already in the market.
Yeah, this is in the market already. It's over 10 years now. It started really in Canada and moved to
So I can take my blood,
USA.
give to any clinic that have the services, the product of your company, and they can tell me whether I'm more predisposed to colon cancer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We have to go for the last break, I promise you, Professor.
Yes,
But once we're back, you come from a very, very important line of family tree. And even before 1900s, your great-grand-uncle or grand-uncle, something like that, has contributed a lot to the people in China in terms of fighting diseases. And now you're continuing that line. I saw the interview of your daughter talking about your company, and it's very, very impressive. But what does all this mean? Only do we have more of such Professor Datuk Dr. Yu? How do we have more of you? How do we replicate your success? How do we make our education geared up for all these changes in the frontiers of science and technology, when all the indications are telling us that the interest in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics in the country is getting down? I want to talk not anymore about this difficult stuff, but about simple stuff, about going all the way since the 60s to learn and to find the truth. And we'll talk about that right after the short break. I'm already starting my discussion with Professor Dr. Liu Chong-Chin, because there's never enough time with great people. But we've talked about, liquid biopsies, genome sequencing, DNA, messenger RNAs, and stuff like that. But I want to go back to the basic premise of all. It's about knowledge and enlightenment. You chose to go when Malaysia was very, very young. I remember I look at one statistic that maybe there's a single-digit Malaysians in universities or colleges in the 60s. So you had to go out and get new knowledge. And this is what exactly you did. And you also have a torch to carry for your own family, because in your family, even before the 1900s, the contribution from Penang to help solve medical big things in China, for example. So if you can tell us your life story, the pursuit of knowledge, and that's why now you're back to give back to where you came from.
Well, you know that I was born in a very small village, Songkai Sepot, to begin with. And my father was immigrated from China, so he was a Chinese school principal. So of course, I will follow him, study in a Chinese school. So my life is follow my father where he got the job, and we go with it. That's why I'm from Songkai Sepot to Batu Gajah, and until I have a chance, go back to Ipoh to do my junior high, and then subsequently I did my high school in Penang, Hanjiang, and Zhongling. Finally, I ended up with Zhongling and got my degree and moved to Singapore. And at that time, it's also a Nanyang University, which is the one. It's Chinese to estate.
That was your first degree in Singapore?
That's my first degree in biology. I was very fortunate in a way that the Pending and Best, Professor Best, accepted me as a graduate student. That's beginning my career.
Why did you choose the field that you chose, biology, in the 60s?
Well, very simple reason. It's a Chinese-based education. English is a predominant at that time. It's very hard to get into university like Singapore and something like that. The second of the family financial situation. The only chance, either I go to Taiwan or stay in here. So I elected to stay in Nanyang. And in fact, that was a great university in a way, giving me the chances to develop what I want to do. And luckily enough, after I graduated, in fact, I got a scholarship for the US as well as Australia, scholarship. But I elected to go to Canada.
Toronto.
So I'm beginning my life in Toronto and subsequently graduated to UK and then back to United States. And fortunately enough, that time, I have a position offering to be assistant professor in U of T, University of Toronto, or Pennsylvania State University. But I elected to go to Canada,
Toronto,
continue my work there. And that is what I built my career there as a cardiovascular researcher.
Yes. Professor, the country is trying to have more scientists and researchers, but you have done this since the 60s.
Yeah.
What is the driving motivation here for you?
Well, I think for young people, curiosity is very important. And with your own interest, what you want to do, you have really have a chance to do it. Particularly in the way that, I was having the educational background with the Chinese mini, with the English, and as well. So I'm beginning to think, what is really the best in my life? And given that chance, so I in laboratory medicine. In the the old days, in the Department of Pathology. So you can see there are so many diseases occurring, and we cannot be known how to deal with it. And at that time, the beginning takeoff is the DNA sequencing. And I was one of the first one to sequence the human myosin gene. That triggered me to look at the gene sequencing. And it's very surprising, as I say, they're very consistent. The only difference in DNA we call a point mutation. Because of the point mutation, you can create a different copies number of the messenger. And that triggered whole the concept on dynamic genome.
Harvard was very interested in you, still is interested in you. You visit there. So can you tell us about, because when I read online, you're looking at colon cancer, you're looking at prostate cancer, and you have looked at cardiovascular.
Yes, right. Now, in cardiovascular, one of the most important part, like heart failure, this is a very silent disease, and also sudden death is another very silent, sudden form.
Correct.
And also related to this, the coronary artery disease, as well as stroke. Now, this is very important. Even up to now, no people can predict
early
the
detection,
stroke, how it works. And this time, I make this straight particularly very interesting. I know of Malaysia become very high incident occurring of stroke. And I was lucky to meet the National Heart Institute, Professor Amin. We talk about it. Whether we can really create a program or project to very early detect of stroke. And at the same time, I also have an opportunity to meet David Ho, who is the pioneer in the pharmaceutical part to develop some of these triple nitrate for treating stroke and neurological disease. So we've come to a very exciting point for this visit, I particularly say that I met two prominent institutions. This is why I think Malaysia should start a stroke to detect, to lead the world.
Professor, I want to book your time for the next time that you are around in KL, because we have to continue this conversation. I haven't even started on how from pursuing curiosity, doing PhDs and post-PhDs, then you are now even a successful entrepreneur. You have used the knowledge that you have and built a very impressive company, Gene News. Go and Google that. But I have to say goodbye to you for this edition, our first interview ever. Thank you so much, Professor, for making time.
You're most welcome.
Congratulations. May you have a very blessed, happy new year. Keep on paving the way for us in the field of personalized medicine and genomic sequencing and oncology and all the other fields. Thanks to you for watching. Hantarkan pandangan anda sendiri pada pelbagai platform yang Astro Awani ada. Muat turun aplikasi mudah alih iOS dan Android, atau anda boleh terus ke social media Astro Awani. Selamat tahun baru, semoga berjaya, dan insyaAllah kita akan terus bersama menaikkan Malaysia persada antarabangsa. Thank you so much.